Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes a pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to episode 192 of the Last Round Podcast, powered by Manscaped.com. Don't forget, use the promo code TLR Boxing. That's TLR Boxing for 20% off at Manscaped.com. Go check them out and help us out. It kicks us back some support, keeps this show going. He's back. I don't know. He might be in double digits here on the Last Round in terms of guest appearances, but the editor-in-chief of the Ring magazine, Dougie Fischer, returns to the Last Round. Thank you again for coming back, Dougie.
Hey, what's up, Danny? What's up, Michael? Thanks for having me back. Really? You think I'm in double digits, huh?
I think so. Right, Mike?
I should get a plaque or something like that. Or
I think
a mini Ring magazine title.
Off the top of my head.
It might be a digital version, but we'll see.
Oh, okay. I'll take it.
I think he's at like Manny Pacquiao or Amanda Serrano weight division. I think he's like 8. Something like that.
All right, I'll take it.
Okay. He's getting close.
I should get like a temporary tattoo or something like that. You know, like a little trophy with Yeah.
We'll definitely get you something when you hit the double digits. We'll reach out. But jumping right back into it, fight reviews. This past Saturday, the 3rd of September, from the Echo Arena in Liverpool on Sky Sports, at least over there in the UK. I don't know if there was a US broadcaster. We were talking about it.
So.
We were talking about it right before we started recording here. Liam Smith gets the 4th round TKO over Hassan Makinya. All right, Mike, help me out here. What do you think?
I think it's Makinyoy.
Makinyoy? I hope so.
That sounds right.
We're going to give it a shot. So Liam Smith, Dougie, I was telling Mike after Liam Smith got this win this past weekend, ever since he took the loss to
Jaime Munguia.
Yeah.
Title fight, yeah. WBO title fight.
Ever since then, the matchmaking has been pretty good for him, and he's been actually winning a lot of these fights by stoppage. You know, Mike mentioned he beat Jesse Vargas last year, and then, you know, he's obviously got this win. So is he making enough noise to kind of get back into a contender position now?
He is. I mean, he's ranked by Ring Magazine. He's not top 5. That's a stacked division. 154 pounds is there's a lot of talent in that division. It has an undisputed champion right now in Jermell Charlo, and he's clearly the best at 154. But there's a lot of players in that weight class. We've got the towering Inferno, Sebastian Fundora. We've got Tim Tszyu. We've got I think Erickson Lubin, even though he lost against Fundora, I think he showed a lot in that loss, and his win since losing his first title shot against Jermell Charlo. He showed us a lot, and he's still young, so he's still a contender, a top level contender. And Liam Smith is behind those guys. Okay, he's what we used to call him, you know, perennial contenders. You know, they're good enough to stick around. They're not good enough to capture the crown or keep the crown for very long. I mean, he did have the WBO title, but you know, he lost it to Canelo Alvarez, and no shame in that. And I was in the Dallas area. I was at AT&T Stadium for that showdown, and he took a lot of punishment. But he didn't embarrass himself. He was in against an elite level fighter who was really you know, more of a middleweight than a junior middleweight at that time. But he's shown a lot of resiliency. And I'm not just talking about during his fights, and he's tough as nails, but in his ability to bounce back and his willingness to challenge himself. I think taking on Liam Williamson, or is it Williams? Who's the guy from Welsh? Welshman.
Williams, right, Mike?
It's Williams. Liam Williams. I thought that was a ballsy move. That was a matchup that meant something in the UK, at least. I think he's fought the he's not facing world beaters, his last 3 opponents, but he's facing solid guys, and he's doing enough to remind us that he's got the kind of experience that still makes him a factor. He's got the toughness. He proved that against Munguia. Munguia was knocking everybody out. He takes Munguia the 12-round distance. He had to take his lumps against Williams. He had to take his lumps even against Jesse Vargas, in the early going. He had to just kind of weather that storm and wear him down, but he knows how to stay in there. And what really makes him dangerous now is that experience, is that ring savvy, it's that ring generalship. And, he might get another shot. Who knows? Maybe after the belts, like, if Jermell Charlo moves up to 160 and then the belts become vacant, maybe he gets a shot at one of those sanctioning organization belts. But he's still a player. He's still a factor.
Is there anybody out there at the moment? We mentioned all these names in the stack division of 154 pounds. Is there anybody out there that comes to mind that you think would be a very exciting matchup for somebody like Liam Smith? Yeah,
Erickson Lubin versus Liam Smith would be a good test. It's hard to come back from any loss, but that was a punishing loss. I think he's young enough to do it. And if they want to take on an opponent that has some name recognition and a veteran who has some respect within boxing on both sides of the pond, I think Smith might be it. And, like I said, Smith is tough. Smith's not just going to go away. And that's a good thing because Erickson has heavy hands. I mean, his nickname is the Hammer, and he can punch. But he doesn't get anything from like a quickie knockout. So somebody like Smith, he's guaranteed to go rounds, if not the distance. And maybe that's what Lubin needs.
Obviously the Liam Smith is a part of the Smith brothers, and his older brother, or his younger brother, Callum.
It's hard to say because for whatever reason, Liam is like totally gray. Yeah. It's just natural. He's not dyeing his hair, he's not going for a certain look. But who knows? All I know is that all of the Smith brothers are really cool. They're really nice guys.
When it comes to the, just kind of a little foreshadowing here, a little guessing game, I guess. When it comes to the end of their each respective careers, let's just stick with Callum and Liam, since they're probably the most successful in the sport. Who do you think is going to have the better overall boxing career?
I got to go with Callum. I think his upside, he's accomplished as is. He was Ring Magazine WBA super middleweight champion, and he's looked really good at light heavyweight, which I think is a more natural weight class for him given his size. And so far, so good. The pairing with Buddy McGirt seems to have worked out very well. They seem to have a really good chemistry. And I think Buddy trains his fighters. If you're smart, if you've got good fundamentals, and Callum does, and you've got a good jab as is, he's going to improve that jab and add certain wrinkles, certain finer points of boxing that I think are going to add to the longevity of a fighter. And listen, Buddy McGirt did well with like the quintessential slugger in Arturo Gotti. He added what layers he could of finesse to Gotti's blood and guts style, but I think he got the most out of Arturo Gotti. But I think Buddy McGirt does exceptionally well with smart boxers. I thought he did well with Antonio Tarver. Matter of fact, I think it was Buddy McGirt that was with Tarver when Tarver took out Roy Jones Jr. So I think they have a bright future together as trainer fighter. Certainly taking nothing away from Callum Smith. He's done a lot. He hasn't accomplished a lot in terms of the world titles. He just has that WBO title that he held for a hot second. But
or Liam, you mean Liam Smith?
I'm sorry, Liam. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Callum. Yeah, we just talked about Callum. Liam, excuse me. The quality of his opposition is very high, though. It's it's consistently good. It's been world class. It's either top of the domestic level or UK level, or it's been world class for several years.
This question just popped into my mind now that you mentioned that, Dougie, and I'll ask this to Mike too, that since he's from the UK. But Dougie, I'll start with you. How would you describe to somebody what the difference between a UK level fighter is and maybe like a world level is?
Well, I mean, national class is national class. It's you're among the best of your nation. UK is a collection of countries that have rich boxing tradition. England, where really modern boxing began. There's I'm sorry, is it North Ireland that's part of the UK?
Correct.
Yeah. So you got North Ireland, you got Wales, and you have Scotland. And there's Hall of Famers, from all of those jurisdictions of the United Kingdom. So it means a lot if you're top 10 ranked in a certain division in the UK. You have to be really good. And sometimes the best of England, or the best of the UK, they are the best in the world. I mean, there was a time where super middleweight, for whatever reason, the 168 pound weight class always had a lot of Brits. And I think going back to the 90s, middleweight and super middleweight, those are the best of Britain was usually among the best in the world. And sometimes they were the best in the world.
Mike, how would you describe UK level in comparison to, let's just say, world level?
At the minute?
Hey,
Sure.
look at heavyweight. I mean, that, the best of Britain, they are among the best. There's at least 4 among the legitimate heavyweight top 10, if you think about it.
Dougie, can you remember, was it like 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I think, at the time when Britain were kind of on top and we had like 12 or 13 world champions?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was more than 3 years ago. It was pre-pandemic, definitely, but I'm gonna say like 2016, 2017, there were a lot of world title holders from.
We had a lot, especially in the time of like me being a boxing fan. But at the minute, I would say it's struggling slightly. Back a few years ago when Matchroom first took off under Eddie Hearn, we had quite a lot of big names, and I think they were kind of big over here as well, like Carl Froch, Kell Brook, Amir Khan. And I feel at the minute we don't really have those names that transition over to the US as well as the UK, like they did back then. Because a lot of the biggest, British fighters, they come through the Olympic ranks, and we kind of grow because we follow them through the Olympics when they're essentially children at that time, especially Amir Khan when he did it. He was like 16, 17 years old. And it's kind of like you grow like an affinity towards them. And I think that's why a lot of the times, probably the closest one is Joshua, who did it. We all saw him come through. He wins the gold. And then, you're already attached to him by the time he turns pro. And I don't think we've really had that since, AJ. I don't think the last crop really took.
You might be right about that. And that's 10 years ago.
Yeah. So I think the last couple of like rotations of the Olympics, we haven't really grown to them as such.
Right.
I think it's with the stories as well, like with Joshua had the story of, kind of coming up and getting in trouble with the law, and Amir Khan just being, I think Amir Khan went to the Olympics. I think he was an ROD boxer. We had a really small budget. I think he was the only boxer that actually made it. And he went
and he was a teenager. Yeah. He wasn't supposed to do anything, and he gets the silver medal. Yeah. And the guy that he lost to, that he was a Cuban legend.
Kinderland.
Yeah, and then he beat him. He actually beat him in an amateur show, before he turned pro. But I think what helped Amir Khan actually is losing the way he did the first time he lost against Bredis Prescott. He made a change and went with Freddie Roach and actually moved camp to the United States, and then fought a lot in the United States against quality competition. So that's a big reason why he was well known here in the US.
Yeah,
he actually came out here and fought here for a while. Yeah, and you used to have that more often with some of the British standouts. I know we had that with Lennox Lewis. We had that with Ricky Hatton. He won his first, he won the title in the UK and was mainly in the UK, but then he did come over to the US for some big fights. Joe Calzaghe hit the last 2 fights of his career were in the United States. Who am I thinking about? Oh, Nigel Benn actually fought. He came and fought in the U.S. and we would see him on network television. So he was one of those guys that he was a British fighter and very popular in Britain, but he was known by American fans, at least the hardcore.
Kind of getting off subject here, but why was Ricky Hatton on that? Was it a Showtime deal, Dougie?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Why Ricky Hatton? That's such a random person to pick to be on it since he was from the UK.
Yeah, I think with Ricky Hatton and fighting occasionally on Showtime, I think that might have just been his promotional alliance at the time. Did he start off with Frank Warren the way so many did? Oh, Nassim Hamed's another guy who, at the height of his popularity, he came over to the US and made a big splash. And whether you loved him or hated him, he was fighting good fighters, and he had that HBO platform and he did well for himself. But with Ricky Hatton, at first it was a Showtime. The first look that American fans had of Ricky, it was on Showbox actually. But I can't remember who promoted him early on in his career. It might have been Frank Warren. I know Frank Warren had a relationship with Showtime going way back, in part because at one time Frank Warren was very close with Don King, and Don King had an exclusive relationship with Showtime.
Not anymore.
No. No, those are the old days.
Running off that card, just to run down the outcomes of the remaining fights. Dan Aziz remains undefeated at 17-0 with the 12-round unanimous decision win over Shakan Pitters. This was for the British light heavyweight title. And Natasha Jonas gets the unanimous decision win over 10 rounds against Patricia Bergolt. This was for the WBC and WBO super welterweight titles. Support for the Last Round podcast is brought to you by Manscaped.com, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. That's right, Manscaped.com. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. That's right, family jewels, aka your balls. Manscaped's performance package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off when you use the code TLRBOXING and free worldwide shipping with the code TLRBOXING, like I just mentioned. Go to manscaped.com, enter that code, 20% off, bang. And also, if you use our code, it kicks us back some support and helps us with the content and continuing this show and going to fights, getting on location interviews, getting these other fighters to jump on and talk to us. So check that out. 20% off for manscaped.com. Obviously, we've had the products for a couple of weeks, Mike. You mentioned last week about the shaver. Talk to me again. Give me an update.
Good stuff. Just good quality product. Everything I've used so far is good. You get all the soaps, all the stuff for the hygiene, the shaver to keep you looking smooth and healthy downstairs.
Yeah, definitely. And they got a lot of stuff, man. It's not just like, the trimmers, the shavers. They even got boxers and shirts. It's kind of like a whole, and I don't even want to say men because there's females who buy their stuff too. So they don't discriminate. Whatever you want, they're going to have it to take care of your family jewels, especially the performance package, the 4.0. Inside that package, you'll find their lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the weed whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the crop preserver, which is ball deodorant. That one's crazy. The crop reviver toner, performance boxer briefs, like I mentioned. They sell clothes too. It's nuts. And a travel bag to hold all those goodies together. So check them out. Remember, get 20% off and free shipping with the code TLRBOXING at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code TLRBOXING. I keep saying it, but like I said, it helps us. It kicks us back some support every time you guys buy products from manscaped.com and put our code in. It definitely helps us in our content and delivering as much interviews and analysis and weekly bonus on-location episodes for you here at the Last Round. So definitely check them out. Once again, TLR Boxing at manscaped.com for 20% off. And now back to the show. And then also this past weekend from Sonora in Mexico on DAZN, Juan Francisco Estrada, El Gallo, gets the 12-round unanimous decision as well over RG Cortez, who takes the third professional loss of his career. We were talking about these super flyweights just a little bit before we started recording, Dougie. What was your take on you said you caught you were able to catch this fight. What did you think about Estrada's win?
Yeah, I caught the main event. It was good. It was a tougher than expected fight, but then again, it wasn't unexpected. For starters, I know that with the 115-pound division, there's no easy marks. Even the fringe contenders are hardcore. That's just a very deep division. It's very competitive, particularly with certain nations. So when you're talking about super flyweights or junior bantamweights out of Mexico or Japan, or some of these South American countries or South Africa, and it's always a tough fight. There's just no easy mark. And the fact of the matter is, Estrada, the Ring Magazine champion, he's been out of the ring for a long time. We have not seen him since that rematch with Chocolatito, which was just an epic 12-round fight. He was lucky to get the decision in that fight. It was legitimately competitive, don't get me wrong, legitimately close. But I thought Chocolatito won that fight. But that's the kind of fight that it can take something from you. And prior to that fight, his rematch with Carlos Cuadras was another tough fight. He had to dig deep to get that 11th round stoppage against the veteran Cuadras. So, at some point, especially with these lighter weight classes, even if you're just in your early 30s, that's kind of getting long in the tooth for a sub featherweight. And you only get so many battles. You can only go to the well so many times. So at some point, there are diminishing returns. And on top of that, Cortez has always been solid. And if you looked in his corner, he's with arguably the greatest Mexican trainer of all time, in Nacho Beristain.
And he's still going, isn't he? Man.
Yeah, isn't he? He's amazing. No, he's arguably the greatest trainer out of Mexico, which is saying a lot. But he's also at that age. He is not going to mess with you unless you're serious about this sport, unless you have some upside, unless you're going somewhere. So you got to take that into consideration. So, having said that, I thought, Estrada fought through some ring rust in the early rounds of the fight. He got, I think I'm not saying he overlooked his opponent, but he may have thought okay, I can walk this guy down and take him out. And that just wasn't the case. The dude took his best shots and hit him back, and I think it took him until the 7th round to sort of find his rhythm and get into his groove and really fall back on that elite level experience that he had. And yet it wasn't an easy fight down the stretch. Even though I thought he figured things out and took command of the fight, he was still in a fight. So I thought the scorecards were legitimately close. And I'm glad he won, because I want that rubber match. I want my man Chocolatito the opportunity to get a little get back, get some revenge. And I know whenever these guys share the ring, it's going to be something very special. So it's good news for the boxing world that rubber match has been set for December 3rd.
December 3rd, like you said, Dougie. So are you still interested? You don't think it's been too long, and you think we'll get it in California?
Better late than never. I hope we get it in California. It belongs here. It may wind up in Texas. It better not land in the Middle East. I know they're throwing a lot of money at boxing right now, but that's gonna. I mean, listen, wherever it winds up, I will travel. I will be there for that. I want to be able to say that I was ringside for that entire trilogy, because I do think it's going to be very special. And I do think it's going to be among the great trilogies of boxing, like, Holyfield Bowe or Barrera Morales, or what have you. It's going to be like those trilogies.
And I think I posted something the other day, Dougie, on our Twitter, and the question was, who would you like to be ringside for before they retire? And the most answers were Chocolatito.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's very special whenever he fights. And a big reason is because we didn't think he would still be fighting at this level after that rematch with Sri Seketsor Rungvisai. How many years ago? Was that 5 years ago?
I think it might have been longer than that.
Maybe more. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think that was the first Superfly that Tom Loeffler promoted for HBO. And yeah, maybe that's more than 5 years ago. Good grief.
March 2017.
17. Goodness gracious.
About,
yeah. So yeah, after the way he lost that fight and as much wear and tear as he had on his boxer's odometer, even to that point, you figured that was it, that he couldn't go to the well anymore. And starting with the Kalia 5 fight, it's been every performance. You don't know if it's going to be his last fight, because every time he steps into the ring, we say the same thing. At least a lot of insiders and I do. And we say, a great fighter has one last great fight. And then you think, okay, that Kalia 5, that was that great fight, and then he has a tough title defense, and then, there's the rematch with Estrada, and he didn't get the decision on the scorecards, but it was still a great performance. Both fighters, it takes two to put on an epic fight. But then you think, okay, that's the last time he can go to the well, and then you see him against the WBC flyweight champ who came in heavy. And I think the kid did it on purpose, but Julio Cesar Martinez. And you're thinking, okay, this kid's got the kind of style. He's young, he's fresh. He's got the kind of style to push an old man off the cliff, and the old man takes him to the woodshed for 12 rounds. And you're like, how can you keep doing this? You don't know. So it is special because you don't know when it's going to be when he steps between those ropes and he can't do it no more. It's bound to happen sooner or later, but I hope it doesn't happen in his next fight.
Right.
But that's what makes it special, though. The fact that you're like, you're crossing your fingers and you're saying a little prayer for him. You know what I mean? Because he's such a wonderful human being, and he's given us so much, and he keeps giving, he keeps delivering. So it's like, the great thing is now it's like everybody agrees that they're witnessing something special, because believe it or not, during that his run on HBO, when he was already getting long in the tooth, already had incredible runs at strawweight, junior flyweight, at flyweight. When he was first fighting on HBO, underneath Gennady Golovkin, you still had people saying, so who's he fighting? Who are these guys? Or they're too small for me to give a damn or whatever. And then he loses and they're like, oh, see, he was a hype job to begin with. You had a contingent of fans actually saying that, and you don't hear those people anymore. Like, they're keeping it quiet. Like, even if they feel that way, they don't feel confident putting it out there, even on Twitter, as nasty as boxing Twitter is. So it's great that he's come into his own in terms of his respect within the boxing world. Like, even casuals that tune in are like, oh, wow, check this guy out. He's amazing, and he is.
Dougie, why do you think that weight class, like the Superfly weight class, flyweight class, why do you think there's such a depth as compared to other weight classes?
I think to make any noise in that weight class, the best have to fight the best. And they just do it. The closest thing that we've had to the Four Kings in this generation is Carlos Cuadras, Sri Seketsor Rungvisai, Juan Francisco Estrada, and Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. They've all fought each other. They're top dogs who have all fought each other, and they're not just fighting each other. They're fighting other badasses, in and around their weight class, during their rise, guys like Brian Valoria. You know what I mean? If you look to see, a lot of them have fought Brian Valoria, or they fought, gosh, I don't know, who am I leaving out here? There's other cats, that, but yeah, that weight class, I mean, going back, Johnny Tapia and, oh God, who's the guy that the fellow New Mexico native that Tapia had to go up against, and he took to school, but the dude was thumping. God, what's that cat's name?
I remember.
I don't know why I'm forgetting. He was a good-looking kid, good-looking Mexican-American. Yeah. He was kind of like the golden boy of like flyweight and super flyweight when Johnny Tapia was, he was the the bad boy. He was my Vida Loca. He was from literally the other side of the tracks in Albuquerque.
Danny Romero.
Danny Romero. God, how could I forget Romero? Yeah. So you got Danny Romero and Johnny Tapia and, Mark Too Sharp Johnson made a stay there. And you have out of Mexico, Fernando Montiel. And I tell you what, Vic Darchinyan, he had a good run at flyweight, but Vic Darchinyan's pit stop at junior bantamweight was something else. But I think he was at the peak of his powers there. But the guys that Darchinyan fought, like Christian Maharis, Jorge Arce, he was another player in and around that weight class. I don't know. You get a lot. I think there's a lot of really good talent from 108 pounds and 112 pounds that mature into 115 pounders. Yeah. And you learn how good they are because they fight each other, because you see champions face each other, like Darchinyan versus Mijares, or Tapia versus Romero. And of course, more recently with the Superfly series, and you had Naoya Inoue, making a stop at 115 pounds. In fact, Inoue made his U.S. Debut on that inaugural Superfly show, which had the rematch between Sorong Vasai and Gonzalez, but also the first fight between Estrada and Cuadras. And then you had Inoue in tough. I forgot the dude he was fighting. He wasn't a legit top 10 contender, but he was a tough fringe contender. But they're just willing. I think they're willing, and they don't last as long as middleweights or light heavyweights or heavyweights. So I think they have to make the most of their prime.
We're talking about December 3rd, between Estrada and Chocolatito in what is it? This is the trilogy. I'm going to ask you point blank, Dougie, who are you taking? Who do you think takes that fight?
Chocolatito. He's just it's. I tell you what, Estrada's a hard man to beat. At 115 pounds, he was a sensational flyweight champion. But he's got great experience. He's got actually a Hall of Fame resume. If you really look at all the guys that he's faced between the first Chocolatito fight and the rematch. But Gonzalez, I think, has his number in that he can set the pace on him. He can set a fast pace from the opening round, and he's one of the few fighters who can maintain that pace, that work rate through 12 rounds. And Gonzalez is also one of the few fighters who's actually more experienced than Estrada, who's actually faced more top level, elite level fighters and top level contenders than Estrada. There aren't many in boxing that have faced more world-class opposition than Estrada, but Chocolatito is among the few. And, I think it's that Chocolatito being able to be a volume puncher and a pressure fighter with the level of skill that he has, the angles that he has, the footwork that he has, the ability to defend on the inside, to defend while you're attacking. Few other fighters in the sport can blend it the way Chocolatito can, with that work rate. And that's just hard to beat unless you can knock him out. He's very hard to outpoint. The few times he's been outpointed, I thought he won. I don't care. I thought he beat Trisiket for Sorong Vasai that first fight, and I thought he beat Estrada in that rematch. And that's just how I feel.
Is there anybody that comes to mind from the past, Dougie, that resembles any sort of style that Chocolatito possesses?
Dude, man, oh my God, jeez, you got to go to like prime lightweight, and still athletic. It's still athletic welterweight version of Roberto Duran, another great Central American boxer puncher. Duran had that ability to stay, first of all, to set the pace. I mean, that's why Duran beat Sugar Ray Leonard in that first fight, is he set a breakneck pace, and Leonard tried to match him tried to match that tempo and intensity. He tried to match the ferocity, and pretty much did it for most of those 15 rounds. But that was Duran's fight, and Duran had the uncanny ability as a lightweight and as a welterweight standout. Even before he beat Sugar Ray Leonard, he showed it against the great Carlos Palomino. He can fight a high volume fight where he's defensively adept. He's slippery on the inside while he's attacking with both hands to the body and the head. I can't think of anybody since the Duran at his best, late 70s, early 80s, who can fight that well on the inside and press the fight while pressing the attack, while setting the tempo, setting the pace, and fighting like a brilliant infight. And he had it even when he was past his prime. Like, he could still, as a portly middleweight, when he was ready, he could still, the way, go and watch the fight with Iran Barkley, right? That's 1989. He's way past his prime. He's 38 years old, but he took that fight seriously. He was hungry going into that fight, and he had something to prove. He had a chip on his shoulder, and he had a dude who wanted to fight him. He had a dude that was trying to match that work rate, who believed that he could wear down the great Duran and get a stoppage. And so he played in, just like Cal Yafai did against Chocolatito, where it's like, he didn't like Yafai has the stick and move game. He's a good boxer. He's got fast hands and fast feet and good reflexes. But he went into that fight like, hey, I'm the bigger guy. I'm the fresher of the two fighters. I don't have the wear and tear on my body like this veteran does. Like I get it. Like, he tried to set the pace and take the fight to Chocolatito because he believed he could break him down. He wasn't wrong for believing that. I think a defending title holder should have that chip on his shoulder, just as Iran Barkley did. Iran Barkley's like, yo, I knocked out the dude who knocked you out. Why shouldn't I, why shouldn't I knock you out? Like, I don't blame the Blade for going in there thinking that he was gonna decapitate the old man, but he played into the old man's strengths by fighting that way and being stubborn and continuing to fight that way. And by the time, in the middle rounds where he's like, holy shit, I'm in a battle of attrition, it was too late. He was in it, and by the 11th round, he doesn't know where he is and he gets dropped. Whereas Yafai was just bewildered. Even before he had the fight beat out of him, he was like, where the fuck are these guys' punches coming from? Excuse my French, pardon my language. But he's like, this guy's literally like running circles around me, but he ain't running. He's just staying in the pocket, and I can't hit him. Or when I think I got him, he gets me. And I think Duran was brilliant at that. And you see it. You see at least flashes of it against Iran Barkley. But if you want to see that version of Duran at his best, go on YouTube and look at his lightweight title defenses, like, say, from 1975 to 1979. And you see a guy who's getting in the challenger's grill, and he's hard to hit. Even though he's letting both hands go to the body and the head in combination, he's hard to hit. And I think even now, even to this day, I think Chocolatito is hard to hit. He's hard to hit clean. He blocks really well. He parries punches. He slips out of range, and then he slips right back into range, and he hits you with 2 or 3 to your one punch.
Yeah, it's definitely a sight to behold, to watch. Not just watch his fights on TV, but watch him in person if you get a chance. That's sight.
Super special. Yeah, that is something really special.
Also, this past Sunday, rare Sunday card. They're becoming more and more common, though. I could see it.
I like it.
From the Crypto.com Arena, formerly the Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles, on Fox pay-per-view. A heavyweight matchup. Andy Ruiz Jr. gets the 12-round unanimous decision win over Ruiz-Ortiz with scores of 114-111, 113-112, and 114-111 once again. Ortiz was down a couple times during the fight. But do you think, Dougie, do you think the scorecards accurately depict how that fight went?
You know what? I did. I thought that the rounds, the quiet rounds where Ruiz was clearly looking to stay out of range and looking to counterpunch, kind of, allowing Ortiz to step to him with the jab, where he was looking to land that one shot. He was being outboxed. He wasn't doing enough to win those rounds. So as awesome as he looked in round 2, and that was a 10-7 round because he was credited for 2 knockdowns, although I thought the second knockdown was kind of iffy. He definitely scored that first knockdown, and he did hurt Ortiz. But I thought Ortiz was ballsy because when Ortiz was hurt, he would fire back and he got respect. And I think he landed some really hard straight lefts in that second round that earned Ruiz's respect. And so Ruiz was kind of careful in subsequent rounds. And I actually scored rounds 3, 4, and 5 for Ortiz because Ruiz simply wasn't doing enough. He was kind of backing away. He was moving around. And he wasn't really letting his hands go until he got touched, and he wasn't always landing. I scored the round 6 for Ruiz. Obviously round 7 went to Ruiz with that knockdown, but I thought Ortiz bounced back nicely in round 8. I thought round 9 went to Ruiz. He stepped it up again, but then Ortiz came back, rebounded nicely in round 10. Ruiz came back in round 11, but then I scored round 12 clearly for the old man, the 43-year-old, supposedly 43-year-old, he was fighting with a sense of urgency in that 12th and final round, and he won it. He clearly won that. It wasn't enough to win the fight on my scorecard, but in terms of rounds, I thought Ortiz won 7. Now some of those rounds could have gone Ruiz's way. Like I say, they were quiet rounds. But I thought that the official scorecards were fair. I thought 114, 111 was fair. I had it 113, 112, like one of the official judges had it. And it makes me wonder about Andy. Andy said in his post-fight interview that he wants to be more active. He wants to get more active. And I think that's important. I think he does need to get more active because he's got hands. The guy's got fast hands. We didn't see the cleanup punch. We saw the punch that could drop the veteran, but we didn't see the cleanup punch. And I think he's somebody with proper instruction and with enough confidence in his conditioning, without ring rust. I think he's somebody who could be a brilliant combination puncher. He's a natural counter puncher because he's got that hand speed and he's got the reflexes. If his footwork can be improved upon a little bit, if he can get his foot speed up to at least close to his hand speed, he can be something really special. But I don't think he's going to be able to really let his hands go like that unless he has the confidence to do so. So I was a little bit, I don't want to say disappointed, but I was a bit underwhelmed with the performance against Ortiz because I did expect him to get the old man out of there by the midway point. And when I go back to his previous bout against Chris Arreola, it's like, listen, you got a guy that is just, he's not a contender. He's barely a fringe contender and you're getting buzzed and dropped. And it's like, bro, what's up, man? What's up with that? These are, I don't want to call them layups, but the matchmaking clearly favors the younger man in both of these fights. I mean, these are guys who have seen better days. And Andy at age 32, and he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on him. He should be able to take advantage of it, and he's not doing it. So, when they look forward and talk about, oh, hey, how about Andy Ruiz versus Deontay Wilder? I'm like, shoot, man, Deontay will bomb him out of there. If you're getting dropped by Chris Arreola, you're getting slept by the Bronze Bomber. And if you're playing keep away, okay, you're trying to play it safe against Ruiz-Ortiz. You're going to be made to order against Wilder. If you're languishing on the outside or mid range, you're going to be there for that right hand. And Wilder is fast and he's kind of awkward too. He's not an orthodox boxer by any stretch of the imagination. And that makes him dangerous. That makes him kind of unpredictable, even though we know that, the bomb is that right hand. He can punch with the left hand too. He's very fast. He's a reflexive, explosive, dynamic athlete. And if Andy is not willing to be dynamic himself and set that pace and take the fight to his fellow puncher, I think he's a sitting duck.
Right. I think Mike had mentioned this in the past when we've talked about Ruiz fights, but Dougie, do you think that Ruiz is just one of those fighters to an extent that rises or reduces himself to the level of the opposition he has.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's also somebody who performs better when the expectations are lower. So going into that first fight with Anthony Joshua, one thing that helped him is that he had just had a fight.
Yeah.
Like, I think he got the call to be a late sub for Jarrell Miller maybe 2 weeks after he had just fought. So he didn't have time to kind of get out of shape. It was right back in camp because that was a good payday. So he was back in camp and nobody really expected much from him. So there was no pressure on him. So I think that definitely helped him. And I'll also throw a shout out to Manny Robles. I think he and Manny Robles were a good team, especially when there wasn't like the pressure of the world on him. But I think after he won that fight and, he had an extended victory lap. I don't think he handled success that great. And I don't blame Manny for that. Manny was there in camp. Manny was there in the gym waiting for him many days when he didn't show up. That's not on Manny. That's on the fighter. It really is. And the fighter can't blame it on anybody else but himself, So, I remember his first shot at a title, right, was the vacant WBO belt when he fought Joseph Parker in New Zealand. And he was trained by Abel Sanchez going into that fight. And Abel had him in good shape, and he made a really good account of himself. In fact, you could argue it was a draw, or you could argue that he would have won that fight had it not been in New Zealand. As a matter of fact, like he looked that good against Parker. And something I never forgot is I remember calling Abel and saying like, "Hey, is Andy back in camp?" And I'm like, "Nope." I was like, "Have you heard from Andy?" This is like maybe a month after that fight. He's like, "Nope." And 3 months out and 5 months out, it's like, "Are you still training, Andy? Like, what's going on?" He's like, "I haven't heard. I don't know." But Andy wasn't fighting, but he wasn't in the gym either. Like, nobody knew. Like, where's Andy? Like, he made a good account of himself. It was a good performance. He was fighting, a legit fellow unbeaten contender or up and comer, heavyweight hopeful. There was no reason for him to, not get back in the ring. Now, if there was some managerial or promotional problems, if he was waiting out a contract, okay, I get that. But you still got to go to the gym. You still got to train. You still need to meet with your trainer. And that wasn't happening. So I never forgot that. I always kind of kept that in the back of my mind, like, okay. So, who knows? Maybe, I forget the name of his new trainer, but hopefully they have a good chemistry. Andy didn't look bad. He just wasn't proactive enough for my liking. I mean, he got the win and that's good. I think the most important thing with Andy is consistency, and coming to grips with expectations. The fact that he shook up the boxing world once, and he was a unified heavyweight champion for about 6 months. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on him, going forward. There's going to be a lot of expectations, and he's got to get used to that and be like, okay, I'm going to aim high, and I'm going to live up to those expectations. And maybe he is. I thought he said the right things, during the post-fight interview. And the worst thing for him would be to sit out the rest of the year and not fight. Like, let's say they say, "Hey, we're going to, the PBC comes back to him and says, 'Hey, we're going to get you that shot at Deontay Wilder, but not until next May, because you're of Mexican descent. You have a Mexican fan base and Mexican American fan base. We want to have a Cinco de Mayo pay-per-view. How's that sound, Andy?'" And obviously, Andy should say, "Yes, that's great. If Wilder beats Hellenius, I definitely want that fight. But I also want to fight before the end of the year, and maybe, I want some kind of tune-up or another fight early in 2023. Like, to me, that's the right mindset. Like, that's what he needs to be pushing for. He needs to push for it, and his management needs to push for it.
Right. No,
And
yeah.
I'm sure the
absolutely.
trainer would welcome it because it's more camps for them to work on things.
Yeah.
The more fights a new trainer has with a fighter, the better chemistry that they can develop.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Andy's definitely got the talent, but he just needs to find the consistency.
Yeah, he is. He's super talented.
Also on that card in the co-main event, Isaac Cruz gets the second round KO in a nasty KO. A very memorable one over Eduardo Ramirez. This was for the WBC silver lightweight title. Dougie, I think we all know, but is Cruz probably one of the biggest threats that are being overlooked in that division, 135?
I don't know. I think he has the potential to become an attraction, especially in markets that are heavy with Mexican and Mexican American fight fans. So Los Angeles is a natural. Any city in the great state of Texas is a natural. Parts of Arizona makes sense. Even Vegas. I think he's a legit contender. I think he's ranked number five or six by Ring Magazine. You guys might want to check that up. Go to ringtv.com and go to rankings and click on lightweight. But he's a legit contender. I'll be honest, I don't see a world beater. I think on a good day he could, he could maybe win a world title. I wouldn't favor him against Devin Haney, the undisputed champion. I think a healthy Gervonta Davis would probably box more effectively against Cruz in a rematch if they were to do that. I don't think that's going to happen, but if that were to happen, and call me crazy, but I think Ryan Garcia is all wrong for Isaac Cruz. I think with Garcia's height and that counter punching ability and that electric left, and the way Garcia is filling out, I don't even know if Garcia can make 135, but if he can make 135 and not drain himself, I think he would rehydrate into a solid welterweight or junior middleweight. And just given Isaac Cruz's pressure fighting style, I think he would get blasted out early against Ryan Garcia. Now, all this sounds like I'm putting him down, and like I don't think that he's. I think he's a real lightweight contender. I'll put it at that. I think I definitely consider him a player in the 135-pound division, and I think I want to see him. I want to see him fight more often. I want to see him in against legitimate lightweights. Right now, I look at his resume and I think his loss against Tank Davis is his best performance. Mm-hmm. And I think Davis is the highest caliber fighter that he's faced so far. Ramirez was a good fighter, solid fighter, but really a junior lightweight. His coming out party against Diego Magdaleno, one round stoppage. I thought Magdaleno was damaged goods by that point. I thought he was a shop-worn fighter. Whatever he had left was beat out of him against Teofimo Lopez. And listen, Yuriorkis Gamboa. I don't know how commissions keep clearing him to fight. I really don't. That was hard to watch. That the beatdown Cruz put on Gamboa, but I don't consider Gamboa a contender. I don't even consider him a fringe contender. I don't even consider him a gatekeeper at this. He's just a name. So. Yeah. I mean, Cruz has a lot of potential. He's a young guy. He's got a pleasing style. Like I said, I want to see him in against more legitimate lightweights. I don't know I don't know who that's going to come against. But listen, let's put sides of the street and promoter and platform allegiances aside for just a moment. In November, Golden Boy and DAZN is delivering a nice showdown between lightweight contenders, Joseph Jojo Diaz and William Cepeda. Okay, those are two legit lightweight contenders.
It's gonna be a fun fight.
Of course it will. Yeah, that's boxer versus pressure fighter, versus puncher. The winner of that fight, to me, I would love to see face somebody like Isaac Cruz, and then the winner of that fight. To me, that's somebody that I think should get a shot at the undisputed lightweight champion, Devin Haney. Those are the kind of fights I would love to see. And once upon a time in boxing, you saw that more often. You saw whoever was challenging for a world title, they had to beat at least a couple legitimate contenders before they got that shot. And you don't see that as much anymore. And I would like to see that again. I would like to see that happen more often. The problem is that, a lot of the world-class talent is just split between promoters and platforms. So, and we don't see fighters cross the street enough.
So we talked about Gervonta Davis he was in the crowd watching the event.
He looked very happy, didn't he?
Exactly,
he was all smiles. Yeah, he was very chill. It was nice to see.
So there's, there hasn't, as of at least today, there hasn't been any concrete information about a potential fight with Ryan Garcia, but there are some rumblings. They went back and forth on Twitter. But
I hope it happens.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, that's definitely a fight.
That's the cover of the most recent Ring magazine. So we hope this fight can be made, because we put it on the cover because it's a fan fight. It's a fan favorite. It would be a fan favorite. It's a matchmaker's dream. Both guys are unbeaten. Both guys are very popular. They hit different markets, so you figure a combination of the two would hit most of the markets. They hit a lot. They hit a lot of demographics. And I'm not just talking about ethnic demographics or regional demographics, but I'm talking about age groups. They tap into a younger market, say, than the other dream fight right now, which is Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. I think that definitely resonates with boxing fans. I think there is some crossover to general sports fandom, but it is mainly male, and it's mainly fans in their 30s and 40s. With Davis Garcia, you get women, and you get fans in their 20s. So you get that, you tap into what do they call it? Generation Z, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think we've had a Generation Z super fight yet.
Right.
I don't think we've had that. I don't think we've had a showdown in boxing that resonates with Generation Z, because the matchup is between two Generation Z fighters. And I think they're the only Generation Z fighters that have dedicated fan followings, unless you want to include Jake Paul.
Right.
So that's significant. That's something that's it's interesting right there. And I'd love to see it. And just their styles, never mind their popularity, never mind doing business and pay-per-views and all that good shit. Just the way their styles match up. How can it not be explosive? It'd be very intense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also on the card, Prince Charles Martin in another heavyweight clash gets the 4th round KO over Devin Vargas. And the return after over 4 years, Abner Mares returns to the ring in a majority draw over Miguel Flores by scores of 96-94 and 95-95 twice.
Those were legitimate scorecards too. As good as Abner looked in the early rounds, he couldn't hold that form through 10 rounds. And listen, we were talking about wear and tear on a fighter when we were talking about Chocolatito and Juan Francisco Estrada. Abner took no shorts, man. He's had a hard career.
Yeah.
That's a dude who had an extensive amateur career, and he had a professional style as an amateur, and he always trained like a professional. A lot of hard sparring with that dude, and I've witnessed some of those sparring sessions, especially when he was a young man and a bantamweight. And he had tough runs at bantamweight and junior featherweight and featherweight, where he won world titles. I think he was pushing it as a 130-pounder. He's definitely pushing it as a lightweight. And let me tell you right now, I better not see him share the ring with Gervonta Tank Davis or Isaac Cruz. I'm going to be mad at a lot of people if that happens. Now, I don't know if Abner's going to continue fighting. Maybe he scratched that itch. and he's satisfied with what he did. I know he's saved money. He's got a lot of businesses. He's got a nice gig commentating for Showtime. He's doing all right, and he's somebody who's had a lot of trouble with his eyes going back to when he was a young man, going back, he's had retina surgeries going back before he won his first world title.
Yeah.
Before he even challenged for his first world title. I remember he was healing up from eye surgery. So, your vision is something very precious. And I know medical science has advanced a lot over the years, even since then, but it's not something you want to play with, man. So hopefully I love Abner. I think he's a great guy. And he's had an amazing career, arguably Hall of Fame worthy. I'm hoping he retires, but we'll see. Whatever he chooses to do, I wish him well.
I mean, Dougie, what do you think that the likelihood is of somebody like Davis, especially with him being in the crowd, he doesn't get the Ryan fight, that it's either Cruz or Mares in his next fight?
Yeah, it is possible. Listen, Mares was talked about as an opponent for Tank Davis going a couple years ago. I think when Davis was still, fighting mainly at 130 pounds. So I remember they were talking about doing that out here in Southern California. As a matter of fact, Mike, am I correct? Like they were talking about that maybe for the former StubHub Center, former in Carson, California, the Dignity Sports Health
Dignity Sports,
yeah. I don't know who Tank wound up fighting there, but I think Tank's original opponent for that date. I could be wrong, and I apologize if I am wrong, but I think Abner was talked about for that, and something happened that thankfully. But obviously, of course, Abner's got a name. He's got a name, and he's got he sells tickets, especially out here in Southern California.
Wasn't it Abner's eyesight that technically took him out of that fight with Davis?
I don't remember. I should know, and I'm getting old, so I'm getting a little fuzzy. But elbow. I don't remember exactly. Was it an elbow? Okay.
And Hugo Ruiz was the replacement.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, they were talking about it a couple years ago. And here he is. He's back, and he got the W. I would not be in favor of that fight. Like I said, I'd be very angry about that fight because I'd be worried about Abner. And no disrespect to Abner. Abner's a badass. I mean, but honestly, when you're talking about, I don't know if you guys have Box Rec open or whatever, but if you go to Abner Maris's Box Rec and look at his record and look at when he fought Anselmo Moreno. Okay. I think that was at 122 pounds. I mean, that's his peak right there. When he, the rematch victory over Joseph Agbeko at 118 pounds and the decision over Anselmo Moreno here in Los Angeles. That's him. That's his prime right there.
That was his prime. Yeah.
Okay. So what years are we talking about?
That was 2012.
That's 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's 10 years, man. I don't need to see his guy fight a legitimate lightweight standout. He's not a lightweight. He's a bantam. And we already saw, I mean, listen, that wouldn't be fair to Tank putting Abner Mares in there, because then he gets a reputation for picking on former bantamweights like Leo Santa Cruz.
Right.
That's not fair. It's not fair to him.
After that fight, he fought Ponce de Leon and then Johnny Gonzalez.
Yes.
Man.
I remember. I was there. I was there for all those fights.
I'm in the same camp. I think we're all in the same camp, Dougie. I don't think we'd like to see Mares in the ring, especially with somebody like Tank Davis at this point.
No, definitely not Tank. But no, I don't want to see him in against Isaac Cruz either. Cruz is he's a killer. He's kill or be killed. And Abner at this age and this weight class, he doesn't have the power to get rid of Cruz, because I think Cruz is that kill or be killed type fighter.
Yeah.
But I think you put him in with a legitimate puncher, especially like a legit prime lightweight. I think he gets whacked out before he whacks the other guy out. But that remains to be seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see.
That might, what I just said might be unfair to Cruz, because he went 12 rounds with Davis, and Davis is a legit puncher at lightweight, and he did some, he had some moves. He had some defensive maneuvers when he was fighting Tank Davis that, he would paste that, I think it was his right glove, to the left side of his jaw and just turn whenever Davis was trying to blast him with the left uppercut. So, I wouldn't count him out against a fellow lightweight puncher. But generally speaking, guys who fight like Cruz, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Fight like they're double parked, like they want to get it over. They want to get it over with in a hurry. Those guys are susceptible. They can get caught when they're in there with a good puncher or a good counter puncher.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Moving on, this upcoming weekend, fight previews this upcoming Saturday, the 10th of September from the O2 Arena in London on Sky Sports and ESPN Plus for the IBF, WBA, WBC, and WBO middleweight titles of the world. Clarissa Shields, 12-0, goes up against Savannah Marshall, 12-0. This fight has been a long time coming, Dougie. What do you think about it?
I'm more into the co-feature. I'm more into Mayor Baumgardner for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they're both American fighters. Maybe it's the trash talk between them. Maybe it's because they're in the lighter weight class, which is I believe is more competitive than middleweight is for female boxing. I like that style, but I think it's going to be a good fight. Shields versus Marshall is the bigger fight in the UK for sure, because Marshall's been fighting, obviously in the UK. I think it has buzz among hardcore fans and among industry insiders. I know a lot of trainers who have had the opportunity. I shouldn't say a lot. I know a few trainers who have had the opportunity to observe Savannah Marshall in sparring against men, and they have told me that men who spar against her, they box off the back foot. They play keep away, and when asked why are they boxing like that, and not to be shy, they say, no, I can feel her punches. So I've kept that in mind. I've been told that over the years, so that's something I've kept in mind. And obviously, she's knocked out her share of middleweight opposition. So. People are giving her a puncher's chance and more than that because, she was an amateur standout. And of course, there's that story, the storyline of her handing Clarissa Shields her only loss in boxing, as amateurs. So that's great. This is also a grudge match, although I think anybody Clarissa Shields fights, she has a grudge against. So it's not that special. It really isn't. It's not, she's mad at Marshall. Okay. She's mad at everybody she fights. And so that's awesome. I mean, that's what she needs to do to motivate herself. But I do think fighting in England, fighting at the O2 Arena in front of that type of audience, it can be a help or a hindrance. I think that Shields is the type of competitor where she's going to use it for motivation, and she's going to show up 100%, and she's going to rise to the occasion. And she's going to box the best we've ever seen her. And I'm expecting her to earn a decision in a good fight, and in a fight where maybe Marshall has her moments. Maybe there's some drama in the middle of this fight where Shields has to hold on. Maybe she gets dropped. Maybe she has to fight through some wobbly moments. And if so, that's great. That makes for compelling entertainment. That makes for that's the kind of competition that we'd like to see at the world-class level. So, but I'm looking forward to the card in general. In part, I want to see what kind of live audience they get at the O2 Arena. And I think they will fill the place up. And I'm also interested in the ratings that Sky Sports does and ESPN Plus does. I want to see, and I think it does well. I actually think they're going to get really good ratings, which is just another step forward for women's boxing. And women's boxing has had a great year so far. And this month especially is a big month for female boxing.
Mike, go ahead and tell Dougie why you think he's wrong. Mike's picking Marshall by KO. We've been going back
I've noticed a trend with folks from the UK. Boxing pundits, British boxing pundits are feeling Marshall, and I'm not mad at that. That's okay. you know, you might be more familiar with Marshall than I am. Obviously, and I will admit, I am more familiar with Shields than I am of Marshall.
I think Marshall, just because I think, you know, she's turned pro with like Peter Fury, just the chemistry between them and what he's taught her, she looks so good.
The Fury factor. Let's call that the Fury factor.
Fury
I like
factor.
that.
That's a good one.
I hadn't thought about that.
You can see elements in, you know, the things that she does in, you know, to the previous Fury, you know, the one before, you know, the trainer he's with now.
Yeah.
And I think she's got just a very good pro style. The only thing that does go against the pick that I'm going is the rounds are too short. You know, the 2 minutes, like Carissa Shields can.
That's a factor.
She can box on the back foot and kind of work her way through. And before you know it, the round's finished. That's the only thing that kind of goes against that. Yeah,
the championship distance and the length of the rounds in female boxing, it suits boxers.
Yeah.
That's why I went with Katie Taylor over Amanda Serrano. That's why I'm picking Mayer over Baumgardner, who's a good boxer. She's a good boxer, but she's a puncher, and her, you know, her edge in this matchup, I think, is in physical strength and punching power. But 2 minute rounds and a 10-round championship distance, that to me, that favors a stick and move style. And that's what Mayer has, and that's what Shields has at her best.
Yeah, both fights are kind of very, very similar, like Dougie just touched on. You've got Marshall and Baumgardner, both the heavy-handed fighters, and then Mayer and Shields are both the boxers. And like Dougie said, that's the thing for me. I think that Trisha Shields may be able just to kind of avoid her and box for 2 minutes. And by the time, you know, Savannah's kind of cornered her and she's starting, you know, going to work, you know, the clapper's gone, and then, you know, they're back in the corners again. But I'm still going, I can't sway. So I'm still going to go Savannah Marshall, a late KO. And it would be good. It'd just be good to see Shields in some adversity.
Sure. We haven't seen it.
Yeah. And I'd like
boxing
to see,
anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see, you know, how she reacts, you know, the self-appointed GOAT.
Yeah. There was that one fight where she got dropped. Against the lady from Costa Rica, I forget her name, but that was a legit world-class opponent, and that was a competitive fight. That was an entertaining fight. So you want to see. Listen, at this level, especially in the main event, you know, a fight of this magnitude, you want to see a competitive fight. You want to see some drama. So
now, Dougie, do you think it would have been better to stick these two big fights on a mixed card, rather than just do a female card?
No, I think it'll be just fine. I think this doubleheader right here, it doesn't need any support from male fighters. I think it's going to sell well. I think it's going to do well. Now with Sky, is that just on regular Sky Sports, or is that Sky Box Office?
No, just on regular.
Okay, so good. They're not asking for extra money. So yeah, I think they're gonna. I think Sky's gonna do good ratings. I really do. I think they're gonna do great ratings. And I think I don't know, you know, ESPN Plus. I don't know how they measure it, but it'll be, I guess, streams, download. I don't know what they call it, you know, with streaming platforms. But I think they're gonna get a lot. They're gonna get a lot of eyeballs. So they don't need any help. They don't need any help at all.
That's one thing I was wondering with the US, because, you know, 3 of the 4 fighters, Shields, Mayer, Baumgardner, are all from the US, and it's going up on, you know, it'll be mid-afternoon for us. It's going up against college football.
That's true.
A big UFC card that night.
That's true. I'm not saying it's going to do like numbers like crossover. I don't think it's not going to. Casual fans, general sports fans are not, you know, counting down the days, but hardcore fans are. And I think we've come a long way, because I think, you know, 4 or 5 years ago on boxing Twitter, you know, it was never buzzing for female championship fights. You know, no matter what part of the world it took place, it didn't matter how good the matchup was or how bright the talent was. Folks weren't buzzing for Cecilia Braekhus fights. You know what I mean? Or, you know, Amanda Serrano's old fights. You know what I'm saying? Like, that just wasn't happening. And now, you know, you have people buzzing and debating and arguing about female championship bouts the way they do high profile male championship bouts. So it's come a long way.
And Dougie, do you think I believe there's 10 fights on this card, all female fights, as we said.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to be a bad thing for female boxing if every single match goes the rounds and they all go to points?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, it's too much. If you have 10 fights and they all go the distance, no, that card is way too freaking long, and and the bottom line is that, when we talk about crossover appeal, we can't lie and say that casual fans aren't enamored with knockdowns and knockouts, and we are too. I mean, hardcore fans are too, even purists that say that they're only into the sweet science. We know they're lying. Everyone loves that wobbly moment. You don't get that in other sports. You just don't. So yeah, no, I don't know. Now listen, if the co-featured bouts go the distance and they're great fights, if they're fight of the year candidates, that's good. That's not just good for female boxing. That's good for boxing, period. People coming away satisfied and entertained. And of course, if they go the distance, the judges have to get it right as well. We have to cross our fingers on that. But if the judges get it right, if the fights go the distance and they're good fights, I think everybody's happy, even if the card is ridiculously long.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. How likely, Dougie, do you think we see rematches of these of the co-main and the main event, just because of the depth of female fighting isn't as deep as the men?
I think both fights are going to be competitive. I think that I don't envision Shields and Mayer shutting out their opponents. So obviously, if they're going to be good fights, and I think they're going to be competitive, then obviously, yeah, absolutely. Even if they're competitive and they're just tactical, I think rematches are in the cards because there aren't that many players. I mean, I think Mayer, the Mayer Baumgardner winner, has more options because, they could invite somebody with a name from the lighter weight classes, like Amanda Serrano, who's a featherweight. She can easily step up to 130. I mean, we've seen her step up on the world class level at 135, or they themselves can step up to 135 and challenge Katie Taylor. So right. I think there's more options, but there aren't that many options. You know what I mean? Like I only named 2 options really. So, obviously, no, they could fight each other. You know what I mean? They could go again. And obviously with Shields and Marshall, I mean, how many elite level female middleweights can you name? I can only name those 2. So I mean, what else can they do? I mean, I guess they could step up in weight and go after Franchon Cruz-Dezurn, but that's it. Like, who else is out there? Of course. So obviously, yeah, we'll see return matches. I think definitely, especially if it does good business. If the box office does well, and the ratings are good, yeah, there'll be money to get them back in the ring.
And then news and notes section of this week's episode. Tyson Fury recently made a reappearance in the professional wrestling world again with the WWE. Raising his profile. I think it's great for his publicity and stuff. I think it's really, really good for him. But then out of the boxing world, in regards to Tyson Fury, he did put out a video, I guess, calling out Anthony Joshua, saying he wants a 60-40 split. obviously, you could tell. You could tell that Fury prefers that AJ won that fight against Usyk. I feel like, he's pretty much throwing it out there, like, man, I'd rather fight this guy and make more money fighting him.
Well, he's not wrong about that. He would make more money against Joshua. Just because Joshua isn't the champion doesn't mean that that's not still a huge fight.
Do you think that fight happens? Do you think that fight happens before Usyk?
No. Well, first of all, okay, you're demanding, you're not going parity, right? You're demanding 60%. And I get it. I kind of get it, because not just because he's the unbeaten lineal champion and he still has the WBC title, and AJ is coming off a loss. But also, I mean, in his last fight, he showed that he could put butts in the seats too. He can do stadium fights too. He can do 90,000, just like AJ. So it's like, okay, all right, you've got that. And Fury is better known in the United States as well. Right. He's better known and he's more respected here in the U.S. than Anthony Joshua. So I get it, but I don't know. I feel like 55-45 is a little more fair. But I don't, to me, it doesn't make sense for Joshua. I think Joshua needs to figure some things out. I think he needs to, he needs to make a decision if he's staying with his current training situation, or if he's going to move on to something different. I thought that Robert Garcia worked well with Joshua. I actually even though he lost the fight, I thought he did some things right against Usyk. And I think against any other heavyweight, that same version of Joshua gives him hell, with the exception of Tyson Fury and maybe Deontay Wilder. I think he beats everybody else. That same version of AJ is a beast. He's a monster, especially, in the middle rounds, mid to late rounds when he was pressing forward and really committing to the body. So I saw some things I like. I like that, he said that he wants to get back in the ring before the end of the year, and he wants to be more active. And I heard an Eddie Hearn interview where he's talking about doing an Anthony Joshua world tour and having him fight in different countries and having him fight every couple of months. And that it's a good thing that he's not tied down with the sanctioning organizations now and doesn't have the mandatories to worry about and the negotiations, so they can just make fights against whoever. And he can, because I think he needs that. I think he needs activity as much as Andy Ruiz needs activity. I think these fighters, whether they're coming off a win or a loss, they need to be more active. And if they're more active, they don't have to be in with a world beater every time. If we know they're going to come back in 2 or 3 months, then you can fight a fringe contender. That's cool. And it's, I kind of feel like AJ needs to get his footing again. I think he needs at least another couple fights before he's in a super fight. And I also think a fight between Fury and Joshua, I hate the term marinate, but I do think a fight of that magnitude, I don't think you can rush it. I think it needs time to be promoted correctly. And if it's promoted correctly, the money will be there for everybody. You could pay the fighters an obscene amount of money and put it in the right place and reap the reward from a record gate and all the sponsorship that it would bring in, and all the revenue that, pay-per-views in different jurisdictions would bring in. But it has to be, even if you have the right players like you have with Fury and Joshua, it still needs to be promoted right, and I think, they would need to promote it old school, and do a multi-city tour and just do the whole thing, where you whip not just hardcore fans, but casual sports fans into a frenzy.
Dougie, is Anthony Joshua now blacklisted from the Ring magazine from throwing your belt out the ring?
Not at all. Not at all. I wasn't not happy when fighters do shit like that. I think it's disrespectful. And I thought Joshua was disrespectful. And not just because he grabbed a couple belts, the Ring, and I think it was the WBA was the other one, but just because, those weren't his belts, The Ring title was vacant. It should have gone to the winner. And the winner can do with it what he wants, but the winner was Usyk, and Usyk was defending the WBA belt. So those belts aren't Joshua's to go and dump, Now if Joshua has some old sanctioning body belts that he won, as he did hold the WBA and the WBO and IBF. And he defended those belts, and he lost them and won them again and defended them again. And he paid a lot of money, crazy amounts of money in sanctioning fees over the years. If he wants to take those belts that has his name on it, okay, and spit on them and throw them out in the ring or put them in a garbage can or put them in a toilet and take a dump on top of it, okay, then do that. Those are your belts that you won and you paid for them. Okay, that's fine. But you don't pay sanctioning fees to the Ring magazine belt. And the Ring magazine belt is on the line for the winner when the best fight the best. And that was number 1 versus number 2. And guess what? Number 1 won. And that was Usyk. And that was his belt to do with what he wanted to do. And I'm sure he wanted to put it over his shoulder or around his waist with the other titles that he defended. Okay. So that's there. But listen, if Joshua going forward just has no interest in the Ring Magazine title, that's his prerogative. And I have to respect. If he's respectful about it and says, no, thanks, but no thanks, I'm not interested, that's fine. Then we won't have a belt made for him, and we won't, spend the money on the manufacturing of the personalized belt and the shipping of that belt. We'll save that money. That money will go to somebody else. That will go to, a fighter from the past, from the 80s or 90s who never received a Ring Magazine belt, either because he just never got it, or, it was because it was during the 90s when Ring Magazine wasn't awarding the belts. There's great fighters, that should have been, could have been, and should have been Ring Magazine champions. And I would love to award them those belts, because I know that they will appreciate it, that they respect the ring belt, and it means a lot to them. Because I've done it a few times. I awarded James Toney recently a Ring Magazine middleweight championship belt from his victory over Michael Nunn back in 1991. And he almost had tears in his eyes, and I'm contacted by the representatives and the relatives of Hall of Famers, great fighters, like South Africa's Brian Mitchell, or Brazil's Eder Joffre. I think he had a Ring Magazine belt, but over the decades, it was stolen or it was lost or whatever. And he's the oldest living champion, and he wants it. He wants a replacement. And people who are close to him have contacted me, and repeatedly they have contacted me over and over, and I wish we had an unlimited budget to award these great fighters this coveted title, because I know they want it. I know they respect it. And I know for a fact, because it's part of history, that they are worthy of it, right? What I mean? Like, I know they're worthy of the ring title. You can't say Joffre, he's arguably the greatest bantamweight of all time, and Brian Mitchell is in the International Boxing Hall of Fame for a reason, man, so if there's a contemporary fighter that just, I don't want the belt, if they fight a Ring Magazine champion and beat that champion, you're still going to be listed as the Ring Magazine champion. Okay. If you go to ringtv.com and go to the ratings page and you look at whatever weight class they fight in, they're still going to be listed as champion. But if they don't care about the belt, if they don't care about belts, period, like Joshua says, and, he is bigger than the belts, he is that type of transcendent star, but there aren't many of those in boxing. Mm-hmm. But if they, for whatever reason, they're not interested in the Ring Magazine title, we will save money and not have the belt made and not have it shipped. And I have to pay for that because it's costly. And instead that money will go to, making what I will call retro tribute belts to the all-time greats and the Hall of Famers.
Dougie, before the Joshua Usyk fight, did you or someone from the Ring Magazine reach out to Tyson before essentially stripping him, I guess? Yeah.
Tom Gray, who gets on well with Tyson Fury, gave him a call a day after his birthday. Because if you recall, on his birthday, he reiterated to a bunch of media, I am retired. I'm done for good. I'm not coming back. So Tom gave him a day to breathe, okay, you said that, it's your birthday, whatever. Called him the next day and said, what's up? Because we have number 1 versus number 2 fighting in a week or two or whatever. Obviously the winner of that fight is worthy of the belt if the belt is vacant. Do you care if it's vacated or not? Are you serious about retirement or unretirement? And you can't Tyson Fury is whatever direction the wind blows, however he's feeling in that moment could literally change. But it's like, it's not fair when number 1 and number 2 are fighting each other. And this guy's saying, I don't know if I'm ever going to fight again, for him to just keep the belt. It just isn't fair. So I thought we made the right move. There are people, even within the Ring Magazine, Tris Dixon is one of our editors and a frequent contributor. He thinks we did the wrong thing, so, and I respect that opinion, but I agree with Tom Gray. I think it was the right move. And I think Oleksandr Usyk is a worthy Ring Magazine champion.
Tyson's said since that he now wants to either equal or beat Muhammad Ali and become
Yeah.
a 3-time
I
Ring
think-
Magazine.
I think that would be equaling. I think he would equal Muhammad Ali, which, hey, a 3-time Ring Magazine heavyweight champion. It's a worthy goal. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, Tyson's a boxing historian, and he's a big
He
supporter of the Ring Magazine.
He is, and I respect him for that, and I appreciate it, obviously.
Speaking of supporters of the Ring Magazine, one person who doesn't seem to support you at the moment, Dougie, is the undisputed lightweight champion of the world, Devin Haney. So I'm gonna read to you one of his tweets, and then you give me what happened there, because you did respond and got a little traction from the online boxing Twitter.
Yeah.
So he said, and this was in a response to after a couple tweets he put, and to be clear, I'm not obligated to wear the Ring Magazine belt. If I earned it, then I earned it, rather
True.
I wear it or not. So
True.
to ask for it back just shows y'all never wanted me to have it in the first place.
I didn't ask him back out of nowhere. I didn't come out of nowhere and say, hey, Devin Haney, you just won the Ring Magazine title. Give it back. I didn't say that. I've never badmouthed Devin Haney. I've never said anything. I've never said a negative word about him. I've always been impressed by him. I mean, this is a guy that we had high in our rankings even before he beat a ring-rated lightweight. We had him like in our top 5. And that's based on his skills. That's based on what he did. And he had faced a lot of solid fringe contenders and veterans and fellow prospects. And he delivered every time. So he climbed the ladder. I had good things to say about him after he beat Jorge Linares. I had good things to say about him after he beat Jojo Diaz. But those are the first 2 ring-rated lightweights that he fought. And he did what he did against George Kambosos. He put on a boxing clinic, or as the Brits say, a master class. and nobody with affiliated with Ring Magazine or on the Ring Ratings panel or who are part of the editorial board, nobody has ever said a disrespectful thing about Devin Haney. But Devin Haney felt disrespected because he wasn't in the mythical rankings, the pound for pound top 10. He didn't see his name in the pound for pound top 10, and which is all opinions, you know what I'm saying? But he's like, he was upset. And so he took to social media, he took to Twitter and said, they can keep the ring belt. He said it, you can keep the ring belt. And then went on, and I don't know what else he said, but I saw that. And, knowing what I know, if you're in my shoes and you've awarded the ring belt many times to world champions who have accomplished more than Devin Haney has at this point in his career, and I'm not putting him down for that. He's only 23 years old. He's accomplished a lot. But I'm saying I've awarded the Ring Magazine title to future Hall of Famers, and I've awarded the Ring Magazine championship belt to current Hall of Famers, like the aforementioned James Toney, or Tom Gray has awarded a retroactive title to Nassim Hamed, you know what I'm saying, who's in the Hall of Fame. And you get the response that we have witnessed in person from these great fighters. And then to have somebody say, I don't even want it. I'm mad at the ring because I'm not in the pound for pound. Like, what am I supposed to say? And when has that ever happened before? When has anyone ever done that before? Oh, I'm not in the pound for pound. Oh, Ring can take the belt. You can keep the belt. And when he sent that tweet out, I didn't even know if he had received the belt yet. So I contacted Evan Corrin, the PR guy for Top Rank, and said, hey, because that's who we shipped the belt to. I said, hey, did you get the belt yet? Because I was going to say, hey, ship it back. If you don't want it, if they haven't come and got it from the Top Rank offices yet, ship it back to me. I'll pay for it. But they had. He told me, no, Bill Haney got it. So I actually talked to Bill Haney, I don't know, like 3 or 4 days after that initial Twitter exchange with Devin. And Bill was very respectful. He said a lot of nice things about Ring Magazine, said a lot of nice things about me. I said a lot of respectful things about Bill Haney and his son Devin. And it was very respectful. And, at that point I was just hoping, okay, he was mad at the time. And he didn't really mean it. And, when it comes time, to travel to Australia for this rematch with George Kambosos, he's going to take Team Haney is the dream team. They're going to take the Ring Magazine title with him, and they're going to wear it with pride, which I think they should. He should be proud of it, because in beating who he beat to get the George Kambosos, and beating George Kambosos, he proved that he is the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. He's the best at lightweight. Now, in the eyes of the panel, he hasn't yet proved that he is one of the top 10 best fighters in the world, but that's just an opinion. It's an opinion, and there are people on the panel who think he does belong in the top 10. It just wasn't enough for him to get into the top 10. But if you look at ESPN's top 10 pound for pound rankings, he's not in it. So what does that mean? Is he going to lash out at them now? Is he going to refuse to speak to anybody who writes for Ring, or who writes for ESPN.com, or who's a commentator for the ESPN network? You know what I mean? Is he not going to talk to Mark Kriegel now? You know what I'm saying? Is he going to shine off Timmy Bradley? I mean, and if you go to Box Rec and you look at how they rank their lightweights, and I don't understand their rankings, it's some kind of algorithm, but they have Tank Davis as the number 1 lightweight ahead of Devin Haney. So, what's he going to do? Is he going to take to Twitter and tell his fans not to go to boxrec.com? And that's not even opinion. That's some weird algorithm, Is he are they going to claim that it's biased or something like that? Or I don't know. It's silly to me. But I admit, and I said this recently on the Ring Magazine podcast, the Ring Rankings, Reflections, and Rants. I said, when I saw that tweet, I was in a frustrated place. I was in an upset place, in part because of what Joshua did, in part because of the pressure I get from all of these former champions, these Hall of Famers that are like, please, can I get the belt? And it's not even from the fighters, it's from their family members, right? It's from their wives, it's from their children or their grandchildren. And it's it's so emotional. It's I get this, and I don't see it. I'm I don't know. I don't think we have the budget for it, because I'm looking ahead and I'm looking at, who might win the Ring title in these, upcoming fights. You know what I mean? It's no, we got to have a budget to send it to this fighter, or, just this month alone, right? If you're right, Mike, and Marshall beats Clarissa Shields, well, guess what? She's the Ring Magazine women's middleweight champion. We got to have a belt made for that. Same thing for Baumgardner. If she beats Mayer, then she's the Ring Magazine women's junior lightweight champion, Amanda Serrano, right? She's fighting on the 24th, right? That's for the vacant Ring Magazine women's featherweight title, right? We got to make it for them. You know what? That's one of the things I did as editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine, is start women's rankings and recognizing female Ring Magazine champions. I started that. That's part of my editorial reign. And it is, it's added to our budget, but I think it's worthwhile, because I think the women who are fighting for these Ring Magazine titles, they're worthy of it, but it has added to our budget. We went from, having, 6 or 7 male champions to 18 champions, male and female. Right now, I think we have 10 men who are Ring Magazine champions and 8 female champions, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of all of them. I think it's great. And I hope Devin, I know Devin is proud of it. I know he's proud of being Ring Magazine champion. I just hope he comes to a place where he wants to show it. He wants to show that pride. And just hopefully cooler heads prevail. And it's not because like I said, nobody on the Ring side has ever said anything negative about Devin Haney. And I've seen, I've heard podcasts and seen content creators on YouTube say stuff like, oh, they never respected him. They called him the email champ. And that we've never, nobody with the Ring has ever written that or said that. That's asshole fans. That's not us. That ain't the Ring. We don't do that shit, And I've seen people who are mad at Ring, because Vasily Lomachenko was in the top 10 pound for pound. But again, that's an opinion. Okay, that's an opinion. And that's not unanimous among the Ring's rating panel. There are members of the panel who have said, Get Loma out of there. He's not active enough, or get Loma out of there. He hasn't looked good enough since that loss to Teofimo Lopez. And, they were just outvoted. They didn't have enough votes. And other people are like, no, Loma has looked good in his subsequent fights since the loss to Lopez. And Loma still did, Loma dropped from number 1 or number 2 after he fought Teofimo Lopez. But in subsequent fights, he has regained his form. And there's what he did before the Lopez fight, which is put all those lightweight titles together. You know what I'm saying? The reason, it was Loma that fought Jorge Linares, who had the Ring Magazine and WBA belt. And it was Loma who fought Pedraza, who had was it the WBO belt?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, it was, and then he fought Luke Campbell for the vacant WBC title. And I think whatever went there with the WBC and Loma fighting for that vacant belt, and then that vacant belt becoming, he won the title, and it was just the regular WBC title, and then it became the franchise title. I think that's what pissed off Team Haney. But that's got nothing to do with the ring. That's sanctioning body shenanigans. That's not us. You pay that money to the WBC to fight for their interim title, and then to get their regular belt or whatever. And like, that's not us. Like, we don't have anything to do with that, But obviously we're going to recognize Vasily Lomachenko from fighting Jorge Linares and Jose Pedraza and Luke Campbell. I think before the Campbell fight, there was Corolla in there. Not a champion, obviously, kind of a lower level contender, but still a contender. And then, fighting undefeated Teofimo Lopez, who had the IBF title. So all these belts all coming together, that was through the efforts of Vasily Lomachenko. So obviously there are going to be at least some members of the ratings panel that are going to give him credit for that, and also look at what he did at junior lightweight and featherweight. But at the end of the day, it's an opinion, man. And like, it sets a bad precedent that if you're going to go off on the rings pound for pound, but then not other people's pound for pound, you know what I mean? Because everybody got a pound for pound. And like, so what are young fighters just going to stop talking to a reporter if the reporter shares his personal pound for pound and they're not in it? Is this what we've come to? Is this the era we're in? I'm not feeling it. I don't like it. When I started covering boxing, if I wrote or said something that a fighter didn't like, they would contact me directly. And depending on who they were, fighters are different. Some fighters are, nicer than others. They would either say, I'm going to prove you wrong. You don't think I'm deserving of this, but I'm going to show you. And it was respect. And if they came at me with respect, then I would obviously be respectful and be like, I would always say the same thing. I hope you're right. Prove me wrong. Believe it or not, I'm rooting for you. Even if I'm rooting for the other guy. If you prove me wrong, that's what makes boxing great. If I'm right all the time, boxing's boring. So if you don't agree with my assessment of your ability or your upside, then prove me wrong, and then other guys, and the aforementioned James Toney or Fernando Vargas was a hothead. They call you up, or with Tony, if he saw me in the gym, because I used to visit the gyms a lot, he just cursed me out. And it was over. I wasn't banned. They didn't kick me out the gym. He talked to me again before his next fight. He would just be like, F this dude over here. And he cursed me out. He'd make fun of me. Everybody would laugh and pile on, and it was over. Whatever. I got humiliated for a few seconds. I felt hot under the collar, and then that was it. Or Vargas cursed me out once or twice on the phone. Fernando Vargas. Yeah. Can you believe that? Just went off on me. I don't even remember what I wrote or said, but he was like, he started it out. You must have had a whole can of Haterade this morning before you wrote that column. I'm like, what did I write? Like, what? Wait a minute. And then he cursed me out, I'm like, okay, yelled and screamed. And then, but it's not like I wasn't barred from, he wasn't saying, I was with Max Boxing at the time. That's it. No more Max Boxing, I don't recognize you guys or whatever. It wasn't like that. So I don't know. I guess we're in the hypersensitive era of prize fighting. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not with it. I'm not part of this era then, if that's the era that we're in. It is what it is. But again, Devin's young. His dad reminded me of that. He's 23. They've been working hard for 14 years, from when he first started, when he first laced on a pair of gloves. They've done a lot. They've moved fast. And he told me that, they're just very passionate about boxing. So obviously Devin's passionate about the ring's rankings. And I do appreciate that he cares enough to say, when we say it, it matters. And he's not even paying attention to the other pound for pounds. So in a way, he's letting us know that the ring rankings and the ring pound for pound rankings, they're relevant. After 100 years, they're still relevant. So that's saying something. So I'm not mad. I'm not at that particular day when I replied with that tweet and that, give it back, champ, that simple tweet that I put out there. When I said champ, I meant that. I meant that you are the champion, with or without any belts. I said that with respect. People didn't read it that way, and that's whatever. There's drama queens out there. There's hate mongers out there. There's people who thrive on conflict because I guess the sport doesn't deliver enough conflict, between the ropes that people, to feed the machine, to feed the content, like they need to drum up conflict between, non-combatants and combatants, or between two non-combatants or whatever. They gotta, pick sides between members of the media or promotional entities or, networks and platforms and what have you. And again, I'm not with that. That's, I don't get it, but I'm going to just put it out there. I think Devin Haney will come around. I really do. Yeah. I'm hopeful that he will. And I think he will. And again, I'll put it out there. I think the world of him. I think he's a marvelous talent. And I think the world of his father, Bill Haney, as well.
Yeah, some type of silver lining there, right? That you talked to Bill Haney a couple days after.
Spoke to him. That's right. And I told him, and I said, because it was through he had spoke to Joe Santalaquito, and Santalaquito connected us, and we talked, and I said, hey, get my info from Joe. And please share it with your son. And anytime you guys want to reach out to me, it could be email, it could be, phone conversation, please do. And if you want to keep it off the record, also just say that, and I'll respect that and keep it off the record, so yeah, that's a start.
That's a start. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Dougie, we always appreciate your time here on The Last Round. Once again, before we let you go, tell people where they can find your stuff.
ringtv.com, the official website of the Bible of Boxing, Ring Magazine. And on Twitter, @Dougie Fischer, and on Instagram, @Dougie Fischer. DOUGIEFISCHER.
And the next cover comes out when? You said it was Tank Davis or Ryan Garcia.
Yeah,
right?
That's out now. That just came out. Yeah, that's out now. So subscribers can have it. If you're not a subscriber, go to ringtv.com, click on the shop, or just go to ringmagshop.com and buy yourself a copy of the latest issue.
I have 2.
All right, you got 2 of them. Good.
2 subscriptions.
Save. Oh, you got. Okay, good. Yeah. So you save one. Keep one in the plastic.
Yep.
Because they do appreciate.
Yeah, definitely.
They do.
Definitely. Well, before we sign off, Mike, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
We're at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to join us next week. We'll be previewing the big Canelo Triple G 3 trilogy.
Absolutely. Definitely looking forward to that event. And don't forget to go to manscaped.com for 20% off with the promo code TLR Boxing. Please support us. Check out their stuff. They got some great stuff. Get an extra 20% off by using our code TLR Boxing. So for our guest of the week and the editor-in-chief of the Ring Magazine, Dougie Fischer, for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.